But ask that we have a motion for Alderman Barakis to have this, since he was here for the last meeting, to carry over for this item. So I'm happy to move.
I moved it. Yep.
You move it. Yep. Right, Alderman Briscoe. Those in favour?
Aye.
Those against? Items carried. Thank you, Alderman Barakis.
Thank you, Deputy. We'll go down. Apologies, I think we've got the full contingent here today. We do. Indication of clearing conflict of interest. Okay, committee acting as a planning authority. We're returning to we've got item 3.1.1, which is a came up in the last meeting. Did anybody want to kick things off, or we've got the applicant here?
Yes, I can update the committee. I did provide a memo onto the hub earlier today. There have been discussions between the applicant and one of the representatives, and there were discussions about potentially just having some design changes, but the applicant has asked if the committee can consider the original application.
Can I ask a couple of questions, as I wasn't at the last meeting? Just the comments from the urban, through you, the comments from the Urban Design Advisory Panel and the impacts on the properties to the south. Was there any sort of mitigation in the conditions in relation to those properties and that impact?
Through you, Chair, the Urban Design Advisory Panel considered an earlier version of this application, which had part of the building outside the building envelope, and in that context there was a discretion to be considered by the council. So the current version before the committee is now wholly within the building envelope, and so that those amenity considerations aren't part of the discretion that you're asked to exercise tonight, and then in that context it's difficult to impose conditions about that element of the design.
So are you suggesting, through you, Chair, that the Urban Design Advisory Panel didn't look at this?
The application in its current form didn't go back to UDAP, given that they had considered an almost identical design, and in the context of that earlier application we did talk about the possibility of that basement moving in so that it was wholly within the acceptable solution.
In relation to the gym and impacts of the gym and any sort of mitigation with that, how is that conditioned?
Through you, Chair, there is a condition which addresses the covering of the windows, as I recall, to alleviate the concern of that effectively being a completely blank wall over a fairly long facade. That was the main condition that was proposed to be imposed.
My question is, yeah, I understand that, and I did see that condition, but my question really relates to the activities of the gym. Quite often it's noisy. This is mainly a residential area, and it's obviously a residential application for apartments. So the impact, like any sort of noise impacts, how is that mitigated?
Through you, Chair, there is a proposed condition relating to the hours of operation. I will just double check to see whether there's a condition regarding noise, but I don't recall that there was.
Okay.
I mean, of course, through you, Chair, there are the requirements of EMCA, the Environmental Pollution Control Act, which require that competing properties don't impose a nuisance on one another.
That's yeah, that would be one of my main concerns, I suppose. Just because of, I know of other complaints of other businesses or residents who've had a gym in the vicinity and the impacts that it has on residential amenity. Okay, no further questions for the moment, Chair.
Any other comment or questions, or did anybody want to move? Councillor Harvey?
Can I ask a question about the heritage impacts of the building? It's been suggested that they weren't dealt with adequately. What's your view of this with regard to our council heritage officers and the heritage report from the proponents.
Through you, Chair, the application has been thoroughly considered by both a Cultural Heritage Officer and the Senior Cultural Heritage Officer, and they were both satisfied that the application complied with the requirements of the scheme.
They're both from council, those officers? Yes. So there's no heritage grounds because they've agreed that this complies.
Through you, Chair, there is a discretion from a heritage point of view about whether or not the proposal sits well within the heritage precinct. But as I said, both of the council officers were satisfied that those requirements were met.
Mm.
Councillor Dallin.
Thank you, Chair. Just two questions. Question number one, with regards to the application not going back to the Urban Development Panel, would it be correct for me to surmise that structurally there was not much of a difference? In fact, it was quite similar or exactly the same as it was, therefore there was no need for them.
Through you, Chair, that's correct. So the part of the building that extended beyond the building envelope was on the basement. It wasn't the parts of the building that would have affected the front, so the streetscape or the neighbours on the other side. And so we felt that putting essentially the same application back to UDAP would have been not productive. It does cost money to hold the UDAP meeting, and we felt that we already had sufficient input from UDAP to give council advice in this situation.
Thank you. So just a follow-up question then. So with their response, they commented from memory that there was overshadowing concern or with amenity. Will that still remain, that concern of theirs?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And just one more, please, just to follow up. The staff, in fact, have acknowledged that Unit 14 would not have direct sunlight, and that still stands?
Through you, Chair, yes, that is correct. And the individual assessment of that discretion was carried out by the council officers, and ultimately, while that particular unit wouldn't get direct sunlight, it was felt that overall the development did sufficient to meet that performance criteria.
Thank you.
So just a follow-up or question along the similar lines through you, Chair. How does this, the apartment standards, how does this compare to the apartment standards which are just for the inner city, are they not?
Through you, Chair, I don't know that specific analysis has been done. Is part of the
I know it's not within that area, is it? But I'm just interested to know because not high enough standards.
It's the urban mixed-use zone, which it doesn't contain those amenity provisions as we've found with other sites. For example, 201 Macquarie Street. I guess all I can say is that the scheme doesn't have those requirements, so they're not formally required to be met.
Yeah, it's just really a comparison of whether it's of a high enough standard for people to have effective amenity.
Through you, Chair, the scheme provisions, to the extent that they deal with amenity, in the officer's opinion, it has done sufficient to meet those.
Thank you.
Can I just, through you, Chair, can I ask a process question? If this vote's tied 3-3, for example, the decision is then made by the director?
Yeah, yes, that's correct.
If that goes to the full council, it's again made by the director?
Through you, Chair, so this is being considered a special meeting at 4 o'clock today, and then we'll go on to the council meeting at 5 o'clock this afternoon. The application expires either today or within the next couple of days.
But just if there's a tied outcome, does the director make the decision? Yeah.
Not at the committee level though.
Yeah, for the council, yeah.
Any other comments? Look, Chair,
I'll move the officer's recommendation so we can move forward. Look, I do have concerns with the project. I think it could have been a better outcome for that site. I think it could have been a better outcome for the neighbours. But it looks like we've got our hands tied with a recommendation for approval. And if this was to go, if this did get rejected, what, through you to the director, acting director, what do you think the chances of being able to defend it in the tribunal would be from your experience?
Based on the analysis done by the officers, I'm confident that the tribunal would support the proposal. Having said that, I acknowledge the fact that there is a representative in the room who has engaged a heritage expert, so there may be some room for discussions, but I support the officer's recommendation.
But at this point, there's no further room for discussions because our time is up, and the proponents have said that they're not willing to alter the design.
Yes, that's correct.
All right. Well, I'll move for approval based on the fact that it's very difficult to defend this if it was refused.
Thank you, Councillor Harvey. Anyone else? No, look, I agree with Councillor Harvey. I think, well, with everything that Councillor Harvey said, I think it is still a better result than what we had initially. But I do agree that if we were to refuse this, it would probably come back to us, and it would probably end up getting passed by through the tribunal. So, with no other comments, I'll put the motion. The recommendation is moved by Councillor Harvey. All those in favour say aye. Against say no. Show of hands. All those in favour say aye.
Councillor Harvey, Councillor Coates, Alderman Briscoe, Deputy Lord Mayor, and Alderman Brankus.
And against?
Councillor Duffy.
That is passed. And that is the end of